All right, let's go over to the pass catchers for love-hate, and we start with Stefon Diggs, who comes in as wide receiver 4 against the Eagles. And Jay, quite simply, the Eagles secondary has been quite the bonanza for wide receivers in fantasy this year.
Yeah, good use of the word bonanza. I believe that's the first time it's ever been said in the history of the show.
I think so.
It's a Thanksgiving type word.
Yes.
What a bonanza.
Exactly.
Okay,
A spread.
Don't know what that accent was. Anyway, moving on to Stefon Diggs. I think he's going to have a monster game against the Eagles. This Eagles secondary, they let Dak absolutely carve them up 2 games ago for them. Mahomes, if any of the receivers could catch a pass, he would have had a monster day. It's just not a very good secondary, and all the names are the same, but Darius Slay's not the same guy.
They got
James Bradbury's not the same guy. Roby in the slot is not very good, and I think the Bills are going to win this game. I think they're going to win this game flat out, and I think they're going to do it by throwing the ball. The Bills, they drop back to pass a ton. Diggs has had some really tough matchups lately. He had to go up against the Jets, who no one does well against, from the wide receiver position, and now I think they'll go out of their way to involve him, and I think it's their best path to victory as well.
Yeah, under 35 receiving yards again, back-to-back games, as you mentioned, Connor. Like, the fact is that we expect, to your point, them to really try to focus it on Stefon Diggs. Wide receivers have seen at least 7 targets against the Eagles this year, averaging over 19 fantasy points per game. Diggs has at least 7 targets in every game this year but 1. So I have Diggs as a top 4. He's an obvious name. Everyone's starting him, but just because he's struggled the last couple of weeks, like, I wanted to say, like, not only are you starting him, but I actually am very optimistic on him. Wide receiver 4 for me this week.
And I feel like he's a classic squeaky wheel player. Like, 2 bad Stefon Diggs games, and they're going to make an effort to get him fully back in.
My big prediction for this week is that we no longer get a tweet from his brother after this week.
Finally.
Yeah.
We've waited so long.
Yeah. It'd be nice.
All right, our next one.
What do you do for, like, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
What are you planning to do for Thanksgiving? Because you never celebrated this as a kid in Australia, I assume, right?
Yeah, so it's just.
And your wife, I forget which country your wife
Sweden.
is. Sweden, right.
Yeah.
So I assume it's not a deal in Sweden either.
No, it's not, but it is good. We like Thanksgiving, one of the favorite things about America. We go all in. We do the turkey and everything.
Yeah.
And we got 2 American daughters, so I've kind of adopted America as a third country effectively at this point. So yeah, we do turkey, we do everything.
All right.
With all the kids.
Okay.
40% of the family is American.
Oh, there you go.
We're trending towards. I mean, if we had another kid, all of a sudden, something tipped the balance.
Yeah. Pretty even fight.
well,
Well,
you got the long weekend. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Look
Yeah,
at your
why
wife
not?
after the kids go down,
Numero
dishes are
quattro.
done.
Yeah, why not? Yeah, let's do it.
Listen, there's not a WNBA game on tonight, honey. Let's peacock and chill.
Season's over.
Yeah.
Oh, man. All right.
Five Nights at Freddy's.
Michael Pittman time, I guess. Wide receiver 13
Come on
against
over
the
here.
Bucks.
Snuggle up, honey. See what happens.
He's got the Bucks this week. He comes in as wide receiver 13. Before you hear Barry, I mean, despite Gardner Minshew still being out there, you're still high on Pittman because of this matchup against the Bucks.
Tampa Bay allows 230 yards per game to wide receivers. That is the most in the NFL over the last 4 weeks. 6 of the 8 wide receivers to see at least 8 targets against the Bucks this year have scored at least 16 fantasy points. Oh, by the way, Michael Pittman averaging almost 10 targets per game. He's had at least 8 targets, our magic number, in 70% of his games. Gardner Minshew, look, find somebody who looks at you the way Gardner Minshew looks at Michael Pittman. You know, that maybe your wife will give you Michael Pittman eyes.
Okay, I'll wear my Gardner Minshew jersey.
Yeah, on Thanksgiving night. Do me a favor, send out a tweet. Let us know how it all goes.
Yeah, I will.
Yeah,
I'll keep America posted.
Sure.
See if they're getting the
just tweet at me. Just give me a thumbs up, like something like something like that.
Balance
Watch
out the
out for
Brock
it.
Purdy MVP propaganda.
After, in the middle of Ravens Chargers, I'll send out the message, the bat signal to you, Matthew.
Yeah, if you could. Yeah. Exactly. Whatever. Just whatever. Pause the game.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Michael Pittman. Okay. Pass funnel defense in Tampa Bay, Connor. So if ever there was going to be a matchup for Michael Pittman to thrive, the Bucs are the epitome of a pass funnel defense, where they're amazing against the run, dreadful against the pass, unless they're playing Will Levis. So you look at what Brock Purdy did to them, look what C.J. Stroud did to them. I suspect that Gardner Minshew, for all his sins, will be able to get the ball to Michael Pittman.
Speaking of C.J. Stroud, Tank Dell comes in next on the pass catching.
I just thought you were going to say, speaking of sin. And then I thought you were going to be, look, they're married. It's not a sin.
No.
They're married. It's perfectly fine.
You're not going to find me complaining.
It's approved. It's a
stamp of approval from the big man.
It's an important part of a healthy relationship.
Yeah.
Just ask me.
Indeed.
Dr. Maddie.
Dr. Matty.
Yeah, I don't know if that one's going to stick.
No, I wouldn't have thought so.
Okay.
There are many things you are, Matthew, but not a doctor. Of
Tank-
love or medicine.
It's a much longer list of things that I'm not than there are things that I am. This is fair. My mom wanted me to be a doctor.
Yeah?
That was a disappointment.
What a zigzag from that route. Yeah, instead.
Yeah, exactly.
Make up fantasy football man.
Yeah, no, I'm a fake football guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Helping lives.
Yeah, yeah, in a very similar way. Yes, exactly.
Tank Dell, very much a thing. Tank Dell.
There you go.
Dr. Dell.
Massive target share over the last 3 games right now. I mean, this is C.J. Stroud's guy. Some people over the summer said Tank Dell's going to be a thing, and for that, he's wide receiver 14 in a massive division matchup, Texans-Jaguars this weekend.
He is, and we talked about this the other day. Like, over the last 3 weeks, he's a top 5 wide receiver in fantasy. Last 3 games, he's gotten at least 10 targets in 3 straights. Just a massive, massive target share, 30% to be exact, from one of the hottest quarterbacks in the NFL. In every game this year where he's seen at least 7 targets, he's averaging 24.6 fantasy points per game. He's scored in all 5 of those games. Worth noting, the Jags have allowed a touchdown to a wide receiver in every game this season, which includes 2 Tank Dell in week 3. I have Tank as a top 15 play this week. Yes, all aboard the Tank.
Yep, this is actually, it's a massive game because this is very likely going to shape the AFC South because if Houston wins this, they get the tie break. They've got a 7-4. Houston's getting their games flexed at the moment. Texans Broncos, I believe next week, got flexed to 1 p.m. because they didn't want it to distract from the blockbuster Niners Eagles game. It's too good. Texans Broncos. Think about that after week 2. Unbelievable scene. So good for the Texans. And I think people maybe still don't realize exactly how good Tank Dell is. Even with Nico Collins back, he is very much an elite wide receiver now.
All right, our final pass catcher here, David Njoku, comes in as tight end 5 against those Broncos, Jay. And Njoku, when DTR plays, DTR stares at him. It's pretty much as simple as that.
Yeah, and it makes sense. Young rookie quarterback, effectively just the safety blanket of Njoku, who is just about their best weapon outside of Amari Cooper at this point. Gets the matchup against the Broncos. You suspect that perhaps Surtain will go to Amari Cooper, so Njoku will be the target for DTR.
29% target share in the 2 games that DTR has played. I'm as a top 5 tight end this week.
And the Broncos have been terrible against tight ends on top of that.
They've allowed the most yards to tight ends this season. Tight ends that get at least 6 targets against Denver this year, averaging over 17 fantasy points per game. Pretty much everyone except TJ Hawkinson, who fell half a yard short of my same game parlay that I gave out on national television in front of 15 million people. But I'm not bitter about it.
At least they didn't drop 2 catches on the final drive.
I know. I put that on Twitter and everyone was like, oh, it was good defense. I'm like, yes, it was good defense. Like, Simmons played him well, but still, you're not only a professional tight end, but you are one of the highest paid, most elite at the position on a drive your team needs to have. Come down with those balls. Yeah. That's a catch you need to make. That's same thing. Yeah. Like that's the kind of Kelsey had that kind of a drop. MVS had that kind of a drop. I mean, Justin Watson had that kind of a drop a couple times. But
it's funny what sports betting does to us because we would not care at all about
vile
that
humans.
unless he hadn't gone under.
Angry humans.
I'm a degeneraate.
Yeah,
I'm a total degenerate.
Some other pass catchers receiving
That's gonna be
votes.
my Thanksgiving. Yeah. It's just
yelling at drops.
But yeah, just like my in-laws
screaming at Dontavian Wicks.
Yes, exactly. Hey, come on, one more carry for Brian Robinson. What are we doing?
Yeah. Why isn't Jaden Reed involved more?
Yeah, exactly.
That's the type of things that are heard out
exactly
loud at
right.
Thanksgivings.
What? Curtis Samuel, I have the under. What are we doing here? Yeah.
Why is he featured?
Yeah, exactly.
Some other pass catchers receiving votes: DJ Moore, Devontae Smith, Deebo Samuel, Zay Flowers, Isaiah Likely now. We talked about him a lot on waivers this week. And then Kyle Pitts there, Barry.
Kyle Pitts making the rare appearance on the love-hate list in a positive manner, but Saints have allowed a touchdown to a tight end in 3 straight, 4 of their past 5. Last 4 weeks, Saints allow 24 fantasy points per game to opposing tight ends. Desmond Ridder back under center for the Falcons, which generally is not good, but maybe he will get the ball to Kyle Pitts as well. We talked about Likely a lot, but big target share when Andrews has been out. Obviously, Andrews done for the season, most likely. But the fact is that Andrews being out opens up a 23% target share. So I think some of it goes to Likely, but I also think there's an increase in looks for Zay Flowers and Odell Beckham Jr., who we've talked about. He looks really good against a Chargers team that allows the 2nd most fantasy points to opposing wide receivers. So I think both those guys are kind of viable wide receiver 3s with upside. DJ Moore and Devontae Smith I have as both top 20 plays in games that should be high scoring and good matchups. We talked about the Vikings. That's a pass funnel defense.
Yep. And with Devontae Smith, I think the only concern for him was just what was going on above his shoulders, where it seemed like he was really in his own head, particularly after the Jets game with those drops. Now he's all the way back. I mean, he's had the defining catch of the Eagles season to date, that big catch against Kansas City. And with Goddard out as well, now it's just two guys. It's just A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith, and they get a pretty suspect Bills defense.
Let's move over to the hate list. Jaylen Waddle comes in as wide receiver 25 against the Jets. We've talked about how wide receiver struggles have gone on all year against that Jets secondary. And for Jaylen Waddle right now, he really hasn't had many of those explosive games this season, Matthew. It's been so Tyreek Hill and run game heavy in a great offense.
Yeah, this one makes me nervous. I mean, because Jaylen Waddle's one of those guys that can make your day on just, one play, right? But the fact is that, like, since week 2, he's had one game with over 65 receiving yards. Jets have yet to allow 50 or more receiving yards to multiple wide receivers in the same game. And we obviously expect Tyreek Hill to get there. Jets, by the way, have only given up 2 touchdowns to wide receivers this season. We expect Tim Boyle to really struggle. I think you could see a short field. I think you could see a defensive touchdown or 2 for the Dolphins. They may not need to throw nearly as much against the Jets. And so I could see, again, defensive touchdowns, running, trying to get the run game established as well with Mostert. Maybe you see some Jeff Wilson Jr. because they're not ready to commit to Devon Achane just yet. So, Jaylen Waddle outside my top 20 this week.
Yeah, that's a really interesting game. And to just show how much the market believes in the Jets' cornerbacks in particular and how they shut down wide receivers, Tyreek Hill's receiving prop, and there's no weather on Friday. There's no wind. There's no rain. Tyreek Hill's receiving prop is 76.5. He's usually in the mid-90s.
Yep. Right.
And Jaylen Waddle as well, he's 58.5. Do you think, Connor, that the Jets' defense might have kind of reached its breaking point because Sauce gave up that big touchdown, big run on the weekend? Do you think that maybe it's just gotten too much?
You see them gamble. That's what you saw on tape, is that they know they have to take a chance to get the ball back for a turnover. C.J. Mosley tried to punch out a pass to Stefon Diggs that changed the game. He missed that. That play with Sauce, he was in cover 3. He came away from his deep third to try to jump the pass. Really, the safety in the middle should pick up the wide receiver. But when you see a corner leaving his part of his own coverage, it tells you he's freelancing. And I get it. They get nothing from their offense. And if you're thinking of it from a fantasy perspective, then it does give you a little bit more hope for the opposition than we had the first couple weeks of the season.
Yep. And look, it's going to be a game script where they're almost certainly not going to have to pass that much, the Dolphins, but also, I mean, they're going to have the ball a lot because the tip ball is going to be going 3
and
now.
This is the one that could easily just blow up in my face because you could, again, Waddle, all he needs is one. Right. And they try to make a punch and they miss and boom, he's off to the races because he's got that kind of speed. So I'm nervous about it, but you got to make a call. And I do think that, I'm ranked outside my top 20 in a week where everyone's healthy and that just the production hasn't been there for Jaylen Waddle the way we thought at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, he's been banged up all year as well.
If you were afraid to make a call, you'd be a doctor instead. But that's why we have you here.
Wow.
That's factually correct.
Right.
Shots at doctors.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
No, look,
You think this is easy?
It's definitely not easy. I don't think you guys understand because, I have to come here and I have to get here early enough to put on makeup. I don't put on my own makeup, but I have to wear makeup and I have to change whatever ratty thing I've walked in into an outfit that they've picked out for me. Yeah. And then, I have to have at least 30 seconds to glance at my notes before I I don't think people understand just the trials and tribulations I go through.
Lives are on the line every day.
1,000%.
To deliver the Thanksgiving content.
Yeah.
Yes. All right.
Exactly.
Amari Cooper, our next pass catcher here, wide receiver 37 against the Broncos. And I think with this one, Matthew, I mean, there's just only so much a young quarterback in DTR can do. We always call Amari Cooper kind of situation-proof, but maybe this is the one that he can't overcome.
Well, we talked about, look, we expect them to be run heavy. Expect this to be a low-scoring game, obviously, because the Browns' defense is so good. And then we just talked up David Njoku. That's who, again, we have small sample size with Dorian Thompson-Robinson, so you have to just go on whatever it is we have. But the fact of the matter is that what little passing the Browns will be able to do, I think, will go to Njoku because this is a tough matchup for wide receivers. Amari Cooper, in the 2 games that DTR has started, has 10 total fantasy points. 10 points is bad in one game, but now he's got 2. Yeah. That means Amari Cooper is averaging 5 points per game in the 2 games that DTR has started. I did that math in my head. Once again, I don't like to show off, but just I'm thankful for having a steel trap of a mind. Again, 2 games, 10 total points. That means 5 points a game. We're looking for more from that from Amari Cooper. And by the way, over the last 4 weeks, no team in the NFL allows fewer fantasy points per game to opposing wide receivers than the Denver Broncos. They haven't allowed a touchdown to a wide receiver since week 7. Amari Cooper outside my top 35 this week, Jay Croucher.
Yeah, it's tough. And DTR, I mean, it was a great story that he won that game against Steelers. It's not like he played very well. He didn't. And he didn't use his legs as much as expected. Yeah, that was a Myles Garrett. That was a defense game. Now, DTR, he did come through on that last drive. Maybe he gets confidence from that. Another week, maybe he's better. Also, Kareem Jackson will be out for the Broncos, suspended for 4 games. His replacement, and I've never said this name out loud, but his replacement is Delaron Turner-Yell, which is a fantastic name, but I don't think he's a great player. But in any case, DTR, maybe he will get better, but I think we need to see it before you can start Amari Cooper with confidence.
Understand that DTR leading that drive and winning that game for the Browns is what got Mike Canada fired.
Yes.
Even though he's not the defense, he's the offense coordinator, but still, just they weren't able to generate enough points, and just that loss was so bad that they were like, okay, someone's got to go.
And one note to piggyback here, I mean, Surtain will probably travel with Cooper, which gives you even less confidence. If you're a young quarterback, why are you going to throw towards Surtain? All right, our last pass catcher on the hate list, Chris Godwin, right in front of Amari Cooper. He's wide receiver 36 against the Colts here, Jay. And Godwin's had a stretch right now that we haven't really seen from him throughout his very successful and consistent career.
I mean, he's getting the targets. There's just no explosiveness, and it's a Mike Evans offense at the moment. The Colts are decent against the slot as well, where Godwin so frequently lines up. So I think you can do much better. You can just get much more upside than Chris Godwin.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about Surtain traveling with Amari Cooper. Kenny Moore is going to travel with Godwin, one of the best in the NFL. Their slot corner for the Colts. 4 straight games with below 55 receiving yards for Chris Godwin. Hard to see him, breaking that streak and snapping out of this against Kenny Moore. He's outside my top 35 this week. Hey, it's Matthew Berry from NBCSports.com and RotoWorld.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching whatever it is you just watched, or if nothing else, being too lazy to click out of the autoplay after this video started, after whatever it is you actually wanted to watch finished. But now that you're here, I'd like to take a moment here to ask you respectfully now, okay? I'm asking you respectfully to subscribe to the NFL on NBC YouTube channel. You'll get the latest RotoWorld fantasy news headlines, all sorts of great shows, including my own Fantasy Football Happy Hour. So go subscribe now. Again, I'm asking respectfully.